I'm Andrea Warnick, and I'm a grief therapist who works with children and families. I work with kids usually who have somebody with an illness in their family or somebody's died in their life, and I really help them understand what grief is, that it's a universal experience, that it's a hard experience, but a natural and healthy one. I also help kids understand what death means, and that it's permanent, and that it's not their fault.
I'm Ellen Kelsey, and I'm the author of Alas Goodbye. Alas Goodbye is quite an unusual book in that it parallels how we deal with grief with how other species deal with grief. So whether you're an elephant or a killer whale or a chimpanzee, grief and supporting of others at the end of life is a normal part of your life, and it's a normal part of our life.
There are all kinds of ways that kids can experience loss in life. It's a really common experience. It could be that parents are separating or divorcing. It could be the death of a pet. Even friendship loss is a really common source of grief and loss for kids. Alas Goodbye addresses grief, change, and loss from the first page right through to the last. I found it absolutely fascinating, the science behind the book, and it was new to me to learn in all these different rituals and ways that different species take care of their loved ones in times of illness and death.
We are one of 8.7 million other species on Earth, and there is this incredible level of wonder that goes on in the world, and thoughtfulness and caring and support.
The images in Alas Goodbye are so powerful, and it shows the strong bonds and the incredible love that we form with those around us, and the sorrow that we experience when those are dying or ill. Seeing animals grieving can teach kids that grief is a universal and natural, very difficult, but natural and healthy experience, and I think that's part of the power of this book. There's a number of unique elements of this book that I find aren't actually addressed in very many children's books on these topics. And one part that I loved was the part where it really talked about how when we die, our bodies actually break down, but they feed and they nurture, future life. I encourage any adult who's reading this book to children, so that could be parents, this could be relatives, teachers, librarians, to really use it as an opportunity to open conversations about grief and death and dying with kids. Do a Be Right Back jar where they can ask any question and put it in the jar for adults to look at and answer later. And it gives adults time to look into it and everything. I encourage adults to ask kids, what's their understanding of death and dying and what happens after death? I feel like this book is so important because right now, a lot of adults are really uncomfortable talking to kids about concepts of death and grief. As a grief therapist, what I've found is when we try to protect kids and keep them away and not have these conversations with them, we actually do far more harm than when we just open up the conversations and create a safe environment where they can ask their questions, where they can learn, as I did, that different species, all types of different species, grieve.
I think because we bring other species in, first and foremost, it reminds us that death is happening all the time, all around us. And though it's terribly difficult to face death and to lose people we care about and to lose other animals that we care about and other species, it's also how life moves forward.
I really encourage everyone to read this book to kids. I think we should not wait until children are experiencing grief to start to teach them about this universal experience.